So we are talking with Ryan Winn right now, who is a famous inker in the comic industry. He's worked for such publishers as Marvel, Image, Shadowline, Top Cow, DC, Valiant, to name a handful. Are there any other main ones that I missed there, Ryan?
I wouldn't say main ones, but I've done, oh man, there's probably twice as many companies I've worked for that I don't remember and don't exist anymore.
When did you start working in the industry?
Well, like a lot of people, you start in the industry like just barely. You know, it wasn't like a quit one job and start another like I could do before with regular jobs. So I was in my early 20s. So now we're looking like 18 years ago, and I was working at an art store in Orange County in Southern California, and I had just been doing retail jobs since high school, and really enjoyed it. I found a place that I liked and was cool with that. I didn't have many aspirations of anything other than just hanging out with my friends and making art. I didn't have any big plans. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a comic artist, stuff like that, but like I didn't do any college. Like my college experience was sitting in friends' seats in auditoriums and getting paid so that they could ditch class and that someone was in their seat so that they could get credit for being there.
That's a good gig.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. Especially when you got some wealthy friends that are willing to pay to not go to class. So anyways, I was working at an art store in my early 20s, and Danny Mickey, the inker, came in. And we struck up a conversation, and he was forming a studio. And slowly, over the next couple of years, I started just doing backgrounds over some Spawn pages with him, and then finally joined the Crime Lab Studios with him, and spent the first 4 or 5 years of comic work working with him primarily, either doing backgrounds or ghosting, or any number of projects that we had. Everyone on the team did something. But meanwhile, I was still working a day job, regular day jobs for probably until about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. So at this point, would you consider yourself a full-time comic book artist?
Yeah, I guess I'd probably be considered just a full-time artist. Comics takes up most of the time, but I do a bunch of other stuff too. Either for just graphic design for, either bands or companies, things like that. I do a bunch of stuff like that on the side. But I guess primarily, I would describe myself, I usually just say I'm an artist. And then people ask, what do you do? And I say, I do this or that in comic books and stuff like that. There were definitely times where I was doing so much and only comics that it was just, what do you do? I'm like, I'm an inker. And then that's what I would answer to people, and I'd make them push to, like, what's that?
And then you have the Banky flip-out moment from Chasing Amy there.
Oh, hell no. No, I call myself a tracer. I'm like the opposite. I always thought that stuff was so funny. It's so true. It's exactly what I do. I trace lines. That's what I do. I sit all day, and I trace pencil lines. And everyone's like, oh, there's so much more to it than that. And I'm like, okay, so some places I push down and make the line a little heavier. Some places I lift up, make it a little thinner. I am still tracing, and I think it's bad to like take away from the fun simplicity of what the job is.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
David Barron, my friend and amazing colorist, he'll tell you the same thing. Where it's like, no, man, it's like. What we do feel that we're artists, and we do feel we bring something to it. But for the most part, we don't try to sell it as some high and mighty thing. It's like, no, man, I get to. In his point of view, he's like, man, I get to color in coloring book every day. It's like, open up the coloring book, color. You know, because by this point in our careers, we've got our fundamentals are down and we know what we want to do. So while we still experiment, a lot of what we do is just repeating what we've done. So it can be mindless and dredging, or you can just keep having fun with it and just being like, "No, man, this is cool. This is what I do."
What were some of the standout issues or creators that really got you interested in comics at a young age?
You know, it wasn't anything as far as specific characters or creators. I started looking at comics before I could read. My grandma would buy me comics, but it was always Marvel stuff. And I don't know if that was all they had on the spinner rack in the gas station in 1980, or that she saw like something that she, you know, I like the look of this one. I'll get this one for the kid, you know. So it was all Marvel stuff, and it was all like Gene Colan Avengers, kind of in that era, things like that. She read me a lot of Luke Cage and Iron Fist. So before I could read, so I didn't know that she was just kind of making up the stories. She wasn't really reading them to me. She was just kind of like using them as a storybook. So till I was like 6 or 7, maybe 8, and I figured it out. Those guys were Macho Man and his pal, the Karate Guy. Yeah, so she totally thought, because Luke Cage had the open shirt and the popped collar, she was like, we'll call him Macho Man. So I was like, Macho Man. I'd walk around like my collar up and be like, I'm Macho Man. Right. Those, yeah, the Gene Colan Avengers like that I got when I was really little stuck with me until like junior high. They were really inspiring to me, and those got me kind of into team books. So I think after that was a handful of John Byrne's Fantastic Fours that I found at a thrift shop at around 9 or 10, and that just blew my mind. I was like, "What? These are incredible!" And those I started drawing from those, like images or characters. You know, I started either tracing them or just drawing them in the panels or in the gutters next to the panels in the comic. So I think, yeah, probably John Byrne was the first guy that really inspired me to draw comics.
Well, that's really cool. Hey, I actually have a question. Like, when you're actually going through and inking stuff, obviously I would think that you would prefer to ink your own stuff. But like, how is it when you're going over like somebody else's stuff? Do you go through it like a different route, or just like, no, it's all the same?
That comes, how would I say? There's different schools of thought on that, and it kind of comes with your attitude and your background. And I've had different, you know, there were times where Marvel and DC guys in like the 80s and 90s, there was just like a stylized way of inking so that they could do finishes over anyone's loose pencils or something, and it would be like, okay, here's how you do an eye. So it'd be kind of like drawing with the ink. You know, there was just a simple style. And that's sort of like house production kind of style, not going for individual artistic style, and definitely just to get a project done and, you know, have a consistent look. But, yeah, nowadays, like, you know, everyone's got such a unique penciling style. There's not really any house styles anymore, and I think each inker has to approach each penciler with separate equanimity. You know, they're going to have their own line and this or that, and you can overpower that. Like I've pushed my style onto people before, and it usually is disastrous, but I try it anyways. Because I get cocky and I think I know what's right. And when I was younger, I definitely did that a lot, where I'd get certain, you know, somebody's pencils, and I'd just be like, I don't like the way they've styled this at all. I'm going to reshape the eyes. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that.
Going to do a Frank Miller Sin City approach and just black out half the page.
I've done that. I've added a lot of black to stuff that I shouldn't have. I get a lot of praise for a lot of my work, but I did a lot of stuff I shouldn't have done too. You know, but that just comes with the territory, and I started when I was young, and I was around a bunch of cocky people, and I was cocky too, so it just kind of, you thought you could be the boss of the page, even though you're just the inker. I'm just the tracer. Trying to apply too much importance to that. So then when I shook that, and I kind of grew up a little, and I started wanting to enhance each penciler's individuality. And I wanted to make my contribution to the page unseeable. Like I wanted to just so try to, like, I try to ink Trevor the way he inks himself, but it comes out my way anyways. It's a little bit different, but that's what I try to do. I try to ink each guy how they would ink themselves, so that I'm just a continuation of them, and that, like, I don't overpower anything. And I feel like that's the best approach. I mean, for now, in a few years, I'll probably say fuck it again and be like, nah, take over the pencils and make them your own. But for now, anyways, I think that's the best approach, is to just take what's there in the pencils and just push it to really try to define that guy's vision, whoever it may be, or girl.
Well, I think one of the nice things about the comic book medium as a whole is just how quickly, you know, it's mass produced, for good and for bad, but it definitely gives you a lot of chances to be experimental, because you know, like, well, if that didn't go over, we've got next month, you know, and the highlights are remembered, but the amount of issues that are churned out every week is just insane, the amount of work that people put into it. You know, so I think there's definitely room for people like yourself and pencilers, writers, to get as crazy as they want with it. Because I mean, as a consumer, I'm much more interested in something that either succeeds or fails dramatically than just like kind of a house style.
I agree. I feel the same way. And actually, when I was working with Tony Daniel at DC doing some Batman stuff, this was in the old 52, as I like to call it.
Right.
Well,
we're back to that now, aren't we? Or
yeah,
close to it.
We were calling, my friends and I were calling it the re-old 52, because we don't want to give it any good name. And I don't have anything against it. We're just goofing on it. But yeah, when I was working with Tony, he was experimenting with his pencils and studying all these old 40s and 50s strip artists who had lots of rendering and lots of different techniques than he had been doing, and he was trying to get away a little, get a little bit away from like his sort of Jim Lee influence, and he wanted to do something different. And he said, with my inks, like, I was new, I was young. He liked what I was doing and what I was capable of, and he was like, go to town. Just do your jazzy thing. Just do whatever. So I was taking all sorts of liberties, and like wherever I saw a pencil stroke, even if it was supposed to be black, I figured out how to make it like brush strokes and all textured and this or that. And I was just going to town, and really it was a great brush exercise. I used more brush than I'd ever used, and I was just like, every day I was like really excited to get the pages going and work through these, no matter how long it took, having all this fun. And we got to the end of an issue, and he's like, all right, next issue, we'll tone it down a little, because he's like, I didn't know you'd go that crazy with the freedom. I was like, oh, you got to know I'm going to go that crazy. You give me some freedom. so yeah, from there on, I reined it in, and then by the time we got to Detective, I was going, for the new 52, I was going really, really slick and really clean on him, and his pencils had evolved to what they are now, which is sort of his unique style. Go ahead.
I was going to say, were you responsible for the skinned Joker face at the end of the Detective Comics #1?
Yes, I was.
That's what I thought. That's an iconic image to have to your name there.
Yeah, that was. So I was still inking originals then. Now we get digital files that I print up and ink. So, you know, I didn't know what was coming. I didn't read the scripts or anything. And the FedEx box shows up, and you're like, cool. Just pull the page out, and you're like, oh, whoa. Put the page back in the box, and I went and slept for a little bit longer because I was like, I'm not ready for this.
Sounds like a moment out of 7.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah,
so I want to add on to that. I want to add on to that a little bit. So, like, how far do you know, like, in advance? Like, you said you didn't read the scripts or anything, but do you kind of know what's going on, or you just, like, take it page by page and be like, what are they doing over there?
I just go page by page. I read certain scripts after the fact, but when I'm working, I don't read the scripts, especially if I like the book. Like on Divinity, I collect all the scripts, and I eventually go back and read them all and study from them, but I enjoy the book so much, and Matt puts so much into the exposition that isn't on the page that I just try to just avoid the script. If I have a specific question about what something is, I'll ask about that. But then when I get the book, I get to read it, and I still have an experience, a reader experience.
Oh, that's cool. I love Divinity. That was one of my favorite books. I think I got around to reading it last year. I might have been a year behind because I'm usually one of the ones that kind of waits for the trades.
Okay.
But as what you said there, do you now that you're working in the medium, do you find yourself almost burned out of reading every comic you can come across, or do you have an interest to just kind of see a little bit of everything that's going around in the field?
Well, I have a complete and utter love for the medium, with equal despise for the industry, which that's the industry as a whole, not any individual companies or publishers or anything like that. I have so many friends in the industry as well. I say that stuff jokingly, but with I guess a little seriousness. But no, I'm so into the medium that like I want to see what everybody's doing all the time. I don't necessarily buy a whole lot of Marvel or DC. There's a few creators here or there I follow. My regular steady reading is heavy on Dark Horse and Image would probably be the next most bought titles. Pretty much anything at Dark Horse, like the entire BPRD line. That's my entire pull list. Anything BPRD just put on the list because it's fantastic. And
oh yeah.
But I love really, like Jimmy Corrigan, experimental stuff, like Rafer Roberts. I was so happy they brought him into Valiant, and his independent stuff is fantastic. And there's so many cool weird indie things out there that I love seeing what everyone does. If I do get to a convention, I love going and seeing like the super crappy up-and-comers. One day they'll be great, but they suck right now, but I still want to see their book, and I want to see what they're doing, and I want to see, like, what the next generation's bringing, and, it's an exciting medium for me, so I don't often get burned out on the medium. I'll get burned out over, okay, I'm tired of reading this crossover series, or I'm tired of this genre trick right now, or I'm tired of this gimmick or something, things like that. But the medium itself and my appreciation for comic books is it's wide, and I don't see it ever ending.
Yeah, well, I think me and Troy feel about the same way, especially with the event fatigue that sets in on the main publishers there, and like Vertigo and Image and Dark Horse. That's really it's pretty much everything I buy right now. Out of habit, I think we both still kind of get the big events whenever they come down, just so you can kind of have a finger on the pulse of whatever's going on in that universe. But these nice indie comics without the brand restrictions are really where it's at right now. I
agree. I completely agree. I like to take my hat off still, and this is just me being friends with everybody. I do like to take my hat off to the people that try to pull off this event stuff, because it's super crazy. It's insanely ambitious. Even when it fails, like you know what, like you said earlier, I guess I appreciate stuff even if it fails spectacularly, if there was something to it, and that's sometimes the event may fall flat, but these creators pulled off like so much work. And you don't really see that. You just see kind of, we on the reader end just kind of get, I'm like burned out on this. And I don't think it's fair to those creators either, because then people are burned out on them, and they've worked really hard to try to do this, company mandated thing, and it fails with your name on it,
Yeah. And it's usually super rushed. They only have they know about it very, very not in a timely manner. So to pull every character together and do this massive crossover, it's every year.
Yeah, and the colorists and letterers, man, those guys really crunch at the end on those things. The letterers that I know, those guys are the most streamlined thinkers I know, because their whole day is spent making up for all of our deadline misses and stuff like that. So these guys have to be so sharp and on the ball and ready to go at a moment's notice.
Oh, yeah. Truly some of the unsung heroes, I would imagine, because that's something that, man, letterers don't get a whole lot of praise in any book, whether it's the best reviewed book of the year or what, unless they do something really eye-catching, which, that's not really their job. Their job is to just tell the story. Then how do you even notice them?
Yeah, and it's funny to me now where I am now with how I feel about people's contributions to comics and stuff, where even when I was young, I appreciated lettering because my mom was a calligrapher and I learned how to hand letter at a young age and things like that. But I got, I was probably 35 or something. I was on my couch having a mushroom trip or something like that, and I was like, oh shit, the letterers deliver the message. They're the most important. They are the ones who the codex is delivered through them. I was like, oh my gosh. And I have an original Promethea double-page spread by J.H. Williams up on the wall.
Oh.
And, it's an O moment. So I ran over and I was looking at that because it's hand-lettered by Todd Klein. And there's lots and lots of bubbles on it. And I was just like, oh, my gosh, the letterer is like the speaker for the author. So it's almost like the letterer was like the inker to the author. That's how I was seeing it. That's how I was seeing sort of this alchemical process. And, so for the past, 5-6 years, I've just been like, man, letterers. It should be the letterer's name and then the title of the book.
That's great. So do you have any any top books that you're reading right now? I know you mentioned BPRD, and that one's an amazing one. I'm excited to see where they take it on the next piece of their trilogy that they're doing. But what other ones are you reading, Image and all those?
Let me see. Okay, so I just got back from, this is the question I always I get all nervous to answer because I always forget. People are like, so what are you reading? And my mind goes blank. My pull list goes blank. My boxes at home, they're empty. I'm like, I don't know. I read Thor once.
It was good.
So let me see. So we got all the BPRDs. I just was catching up on Hellboy and Hell, and that was just flawless, just absolutely flawless. I do read and enjoy the Valiant titles, honestly, not just because I work for them. I think even the worst Valiant book is better or as good as anybody else's mediocre book.
Yeah, I agree.
God, I'm totally drawing a blank on a bunch of the indie books that I'm reading right now, because I got a handful when I was in New York, of super indie, self-published stuff, some really cool stuff that I feel bad I'm drawing a blank on right now. I've been reading a lot of old Captain Marvel. That's kind of what's been doing it for me lately.
Really?
And
is that Shazam Captain Marvel or the Marvel Captain Marvel?
Oh, Shazam Captain Marvel. Sorry, I still call him Captain Marvel. Let's see. I'm one of the people, I still really love The Walking Dead every month. I know a lot of people are burned out on it, but I don't know if it's good or bad anymore either. I'm just in there. I'm with these people.
In it for the long haul.
Yeah, People are like, you like it? I'm like, I have no idea, but man, shit got crazy this week.
Yeah, I just caught up myself on it. I read the last trade about a week ago, and that was the whole Whisperer War thing. So, yeah, it's still solid. I mean, how many books can you say? 200 or so issues in, you're still reading it.
Yeah, and it's the same story. It's not even like 200 issues of Spider-Man where we've had 6 creative teams and a reboot halfway through or something. It's one story. They're still rocking it.
Yeah, I always thought Invincible would kind of follow suit with that, so I was really kind of heartbroken when I heard that one was going to wrap up. I almost figured that one would stand more the test of time than Walking Dead, but you never know.
Well, yeah, and I figured that one, it would, the nature of it being a superhero book with different teams, characters, it would just kind of lend itself to that ongoing, let's get to 600, let's get to 800 kind of.
Oh, yeah.
kind of thing. Where I'm sure, I don't know if they've announced anything. I'm sure they'll come back and do more from that universe, regardless of if they say they won't. But yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that too. I was like, wow, I thought that one would be figured that was like I said, your Spider-Man or something. You just wanted to.
Yeah. It would outlive Robert Kirkman.
Yeah, I'm sure Otley wouldn't mind going to issue 600.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on some of there's some other titles I've really been enjoying. Like last year, I absolutely loved Space Riders from Black Mask.
Oh, okay. Yep. I have a couple from them. I think We Can Never Go Home Again. Is that one of the Black Mask titles? I got that on myself.
I've enjoyed their titles so far. They've been interesting. Anything I got from them. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. There's some other cool stuff that I'm going to kick myself later for not name dropping.
Well, if you need to make an addendum, feel free to shoot us a list, and we can we can throw that on.
That's
if
true.
You're kicking yourself.
Shit, I forgot to say. Here you
go. Well, man, I mean, you've given us about 40 minutes, more than that, of your time, and that's including our technical difficulties at the beginning. So I don't want to keep you if you've got anything else to attend to, but I really appreciate you taking your time on a Thursday night and just chatting with two schmoes from the Midwest here.
Well, did you guys have any more questions? Because I was just rambling on. Like, did you have any inking questions or industry questions or anything? Because I'm not in a rush. You can let me go whenever.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So I've heard from other pencils that usually they get a page a day done. How fast is your process?
I prefer to only do a page a day. It takes me anywhere from 4 to 6 hours to ink a Trevor page, and but I don't like to sit for 4 or 6 hours. I like to break up my day a little bit so that I don't, jack up my back too bad or anything like that.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll break it up and I'll spend all day on one page. But when we get down to deadline crunches, I'll end up doing 3 to 4 pages in a day. If I got to, depending on the ease of pages. But Trevor's really consistent with what I call line count on the page, with how many lines and you have to put on a page. So each page is pretty consistent, regardless of what it asks for, and that's Trevor's brilliance. Trevor spends more time figuring out what not to draw, so that the inker and the colorist can just focus the details on the few things. Like, if you just flip through Divinity, you'll notice there's so much negative space in a lot of the panels. Like, he doesn't add tons of background details on each panel because it's completely unnecessary to the flow of the story and the airy feel that he's trying to create. So each page on his is pretty consistent. So even if I haven't seen the page and we're coming down on deadlines, I can usually figure out how much I can get done. Whereas when we were doing Exo Manowar, the Dead Hand series, it was crazy because there's millions of soldiers or robots on each page, and then dozens of Exo Warriors. So it was okay, how long is this page going to take me? I have no idea. I've never done anything like this. So with that stuff, it was just like, can you do a page a day? I have no idea. We'll see. Where with Trevor's, it's at least a page a day. If I wanted to push it, I could probably get 2 done a day, but I like to just ink one page a day and then go and do either some graphic design or penciling my stuff or do something else that's not just straight inking.
All right, right on.
Well, you mentioned your own stuff. You have the comic strip that you are part creator of, right? Is it Dead Betty or Death Betty?
It's called Death Betty, and it was kind of put on hold. We had it going, and we were doing weekly posts, and we had a 0 issue, and we were getting ready to go, and then I got the opportunity to do Archer and Armstrong last year and a couple other things, so it was just like we put it on hold, but now we're back cooking with that. So there's not really much to announce. Like the site is still up at deathbetty.com, but we're not going to be doing anything active for a few months until we've got the rest of the issues banked, and then we're going to digitally release the first 3-4 issues.
Oh, cool. Is there ever a print version of that, or is it all going to be online?
We do have print versions I have a few print versions of the 0 issue left. I can send you guys a couple.
Oh, that'd be awesome, man.
Unless we get a publisher that really wants to do it, I kind of actually want to do it just in the digital form because we have Jean-Francois Bellieu, the colorist, is doing our colors, and they're so unique and they're so amazing, but they're done in RGB. And we've tried to find printers that can print from our RGB files instead of CMYK, and they come close, but like our main character has this neon green that's their main color, and we're sort of like embracing the idea of digital comics being the new format of books.
Yeah.
Even though I love print. It's actually my favorite. I didn't want to go digital with it at all at first. I wanted to just only do print and this or that because that's what I love, comics. And but I was so unhappy with the printed version of the colors that I was like, maybe this is just maybe this title we just embrace the digital world.
Yeah. I went to school for graphic design, and like that was always the stuff that I just hated doing. Was like, well, I got to set it up in CMYK because I got to do it for whatever this format, and it's just like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing creative about it. It's just checking boxes until you're allowed to play with it.
Yeah, and it's funny. I love the old CMYK process in comics. I think it's amazing, but there's certain things that it's like, no. If you like I said, the neon green, you can't get the same neon green in print, and I mean without it being exponentially expensive. Like it's totally possible. I shouldn't say it's not. I should add in the caveat that it's possible. It's just way more expensive to get specialized colors for a whole comic.
Right. I think that's why they turned the whole green, right? That was Stan Lee's whole thing.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those things where it was coming out the color they wanted. It wasn't coming out, so they just went with the green that they could use.
So speaking of digital work, and you said that you hand ink quite a bit, would you say what percentage of your output is you physically inking with like pens and brushes compared to digitally rendering things on like Photoshop or whatever online tool you use?
All of my comic book work, my published comic book work, is hand done.
Okay.
I seldom will use Photoshop for like dot patterns or like an effect or things like that. I did use it a lot to cheat in the Exo Manowar, the Dead Hand series. I created a brush for some of the robots, so then I could just go in and brush the robots and then tilt the angle of the brush and tilt it again, and just created these. Drew 5 or 6 robots and then brushed in 1,000 others. So stuff like that. But I would say, it's got to be 99.9% of my comic work has been traditional pen and ink on paper. Yeah, I prefer everything tactile. All of my art experience, everything growing up was calligraphy, woodworking, all this like hands-on, like we made things. That's what my family did. Everyone made things. And, you know, my dad, I grew up in a sign shop, so we were just making signs. We were always making a thing. So for me, that's part of the comic process is, cool, I made this thing. Oh, and they're going to use it to make a comic book out of.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said, like Peckett and Mike Norton. Those guys, they move so fast digitally. They move so much faster than they did when they were doing paper on pencil. That for production reason, I understand. Where I prefer original art. There's I don't know. I'm not ever gonna not prefer that, but I've come to the point where I understand these guys doing that. You know.
Yeah, and I was going to bring it up too, but when you're talking about Trevor Hairsine's work in the use of negative space, it really brought me to think of Frank Quietly too, which I think is like one of the best examples of, you know, less is more in his works, and just this huge splash page of Superman flying with nothing going on in the background is more striking than, you know, this insane double page spread by Jeff Darrow or somebody who's known for these insane backgrounds.
Yeah, and yet we'd never want Darrow to draw like Frank, and we don't want Frank to go like Darrow. You know?
It's
funny that like, because Frank is, he's in his own fucking realm. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, he works on DC books, but those are Frank books, and DC was lucky enough to get there in time to put their stamp on it. That's how I always feel about Frank stuff. Like, it's just otherworldly in its brilliance.
Yeah, his multiversity arc or issue that he did with Morrison was just mind-blowing. Like, I think of a book that I've reread more than that.
That's what I was going to say. Call it an arc. It was more than a one-shot, man. It was 20-some pages, but I swear when you're reading it, you're like, no, that was like 60 pages, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, he essentially told Watchmen in an issue, you know.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah, here's what Alan Moore did 12 issues.
And I respect Alan Moore, but I was late to Watchmen. So by the time I got to it, I was like, okay, I think I get it all now. And, we're just going to go through this with each character now? Oh, okay. Well, I fully appreciated the brilliance of it, but to me it was like the longest, hardest way to tell a story. And
yeah,
it is. It's brilliant. I've read it a few times. I'm not going to say it's not, but I think really to feel the magic, you had to be reading it when it was coming out.
Yeah, I read it. It was like one of the first things I ever read when I like really got heavy into comics, and I didn't really get the gravity of it at all. And then I read it again like 5 years later, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. This is really good.
It is brilliant, and that's where I try not to actually talk about it with people because they always feel like I'm dissing it or something. And it's like, no, it's absolutely brilliant. But to me, it's the chalkboard full of a math problem.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's a lot of work. So that's my own personal like laziness, where I'm like, nah, you could have just been like, hey, here's one analogy. Guess what? It works on all these characters. Next page.
Yeah. Well, I think with comics, it's almost like, I mean, you have to give it the same perspective as like you look at classic movies, where if Alien came out today, it's nothing. But you watch it and you think like, oh my God, in the 70s, no one had ever seen a chest burster before. So you have to almost look at all this through the eyes of the time and be like, yeah, I got to keep reminding myself, there's nothing like this done before. So even though we're a little desensitized to it now, it's like, man, I guess it was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, I have friends that we got in a debate about special effects because they were making fun of Harryhausen's effects in the first Clash of the Titans. They're like, oh man, it just looks like stupid little clay toys. And I was like, yeah, but look what he did with those stupid little clay toys. It's like we're not you can't compare this to Guardians of the Galaxy and their special effects. It's totally different, you know? Like, so for me, I can still watch an old movie and see the string on the UFO and not worry about that, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it makes you appreciate it a little bit more. You know, I take a rubber-looking monster mask covered in slime from an 80s B-movie than like an overly polished, bland CGI creature in, you know, Super 8 or Cloverfield today, any day of the week.
Yeah, my dad...
Like what you were saying, something tactile about it, you know? It's not something someone just made on a computer.
Yeah, and then it even goes to the imagination where, like, it's the viewer's duty to ignore the string.
Yeah.
My cat does that. I have a little string and a toy in the end, and I drag it around, and the cat has to pretend that the thing is just running around on its own, that it's not being dragged around by me. So it's like, come on, if a cat can do it, we can do it, people. now it sounds like I'm on soapboxing for old special effects movies. Now,
it gave me the end of Terminator 2 there, where if a machine can find the love in humanity, then maybe we can too. Well, awesome, man. Troy, did you have any other questions?
No, we're just kind of wrapping up, I would assume, but I was just wondering if you're going to be at any cons during the year.
I don't have anything scheduled yet. I'm in a con burnout phase right now.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And like, I love meeting people. Like, that's my favorite part of the con is meeting people. My least favorite part of the con is everything else. And I almost want to set up. I was joking with someone about it online. I was like, okay, so we're gonna just do a Skype convention, like where we all just like sit in our things, and anyone who wants to join in the forum, like any fans or readers or anything, like, come on in. I'll have special prints. I'll ship it to you, this or that. You can sit and talk for a while. We'll hang out. Nobody has to buy anything or go anywhere.
Oh my God, that sounds heavenly.
And everyone can be in their underwear.
Yeah. I'll wear like a nice shirt from the waist up so that it looks okay on camera. But yeah, SkypeCon 2018, boys, it's coming.
That's where it's at. You just changed the whole business now.
I'll have like Reed Pop sending assassins after me or something. Like, oh, this guy's trying to take away from us, charging people for celebrity signature. Sorry, now I'm going off on a tangent. Sorry.
Hey, come on, people need their photos with Daryl from The Walking Dead.
Oh, no.
For 40 $50.
But 6 months from now, I'll be all in convention mode again. I'll be all ready for it and want to be gung-ho and lug all the stuff around, and it'll be fun.
How far out do you go? Do you go like the whole circuit, or do you just kind of stay around where you're at?
I usually only do like New York or Phoenix. These last couple of years, actually, I haven't really have done much at all. Gosh, I think my last one was New York, 2015. So yeah, I haven't done a con in a year and a half now. Wow. So yeah, I usually do like New York. I'm in California. The California shows are kind of slow. So I usually just go and like do a couple laps, say hi to my friends and stuff like that. I don't get asked to panels or anything like that, so I don't ever have any like responsibilities at the conventions or anything. So
that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, that's what I've learned. I used to want to have to do all this stuff, and then I had a few years of doing tons of stuff. And like when I was with DC, I did a few panels, and it was a lot more work. And while I was at DC, seeing what some of the other guys went through to do their panels, be at their table, go do other signings, do this or that. And I was like, I'm too lazy for this shit. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go home and wait for them to do SkypeCon. Later, boys.
Well, if you ever find yourself doing them again and you end up going to like C2E2 or like Wizard World Chicago, I would definitely look you out and maybe just find a hotel party afterwards.
Yeah, I would love to. I have so many friends, Tim Seeley, a bunch of people that I'd love to hang out with at C2E2 or some of the Chicago shows. I've just never been. That's all it is. I have nothing against it. I'd love to go. I haven't done it.
Oh, well, cool. Now that we know someone in the biz, you'll have to let us know if you ever do it, and we'll make sure that we make a trek down sometime too.
Yeah, of course, dude.
Well, awesome, man. Did you have anything that you wanted to add or anything that we didn't touch on, Ryan?
You know, I had a list of questions I was going to ask you guys because I always ask people questions, and now my mind is just farted on me, and I'm drawing a blank. Okay. So what are your favorite? I know you guys are Morrison heads, but what are some of your other favorite creators? Like besides Morrison and Quietly, who are some creators that you're currently reading that you really enjoy?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really a huge fan of Otley. We were touching on Invincible a little bit, but like even if my natural style is kind of like similar to his, so I think that's why I gravitated to it. It's somewhat physically, accurate, but it's still got a cartoon bounciness to it.
Mhm.
So I really like him.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, but who knows? Now that you ask me, now I'm the same way.
I've been a big Jonathan Hickman fan recently.
Yes.
I just read Black Monday Murders, which I just absolutely loved. That was great. I really dug his Manhattan projects.
Yes. Love that.
Yeah, he's got he's got a ton, and I've read maybe half of them. There's even quite a bit of Morrison stuff that I have on my shelf, and I haven't read it, and I'll go back and reread The Invisibles, all the way through, but I haven't read Animal Man yet, which seems like blasphemy, but I just like knowing that I've got it waiting for me. Like, if Grant Morrison, God forbid, was hit by a car tomorrow, I've still got stuff of his that I can enjoy for the first time. Kind of a pleasure delayer in that regard.
I have enjoyed rereading Animal Man. So I'm so old, I read that when it was coming out. And absolutely, it was mind-blowing at the time. Like, I won't spoil anything for you. I'm sure you've heard all about it. But there hadn't been much like that. When I got older and got into researching comics, obviously everyone's done everything already. Like, you find weird old indie stuff or, somebody's done every idea already. But I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't seen anything meta before. I was like 11 or 12, something like that. And but that I reread it again in my 20s, and I loved it. And then I reread it again maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I loved it. And I thought it was so cool that something could, because I'm not nostalgic at all. I could care less about the stuff I grew up on, and this was just as good. I mean, obviously things that date it, but you get over that.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think of some other big ones. I really love what Joe Hill and Gabriel Hernandez did with Lock and Key.
Yeah.
Or is it Rodriguez? Gabriel Rodriguez.
Yeah, I think that's it. Ugh.
Yeah, but man, that one became one of my favorite books of all time. I love how consistent the art is, and really, really like Joe Hill as a storyteller. I've read pretty much all of his novels too, and I think Lock and Key is his strongest work he's done.
Really? I haven't read his novels, so it's interesting to hear.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of good ones, but man, I mean, just how concise and how well done and well thought out Lock and Key is. I'm amazed every time I reread that.
I went into that thinking, I'll try it because my friend said to try it, whatever, and I got some like 0 issue or something at a free comic book day that they did years back, and got home, read that one, and I was like, okay, well, now there's no comic stores open for me to go buy every single issue of this right now. I was so mad. It was like 9 p.m. I was like, oh, I want more of this so bad. It was so good.
Yep, I was the same way. I think Wizard magazine, when that was around, was is one of their one of their hidden gems of the month. And I was like, I'll give it a try. I saw it in the store and just kind of flipped through it, thought it looked pretty well drawn, and I was like, yeah, sure. And read it and was like, yeah, that was pretty good. And then the next trade came out and I picked it up and just kind of read it every 6 months whenever a new one was released. And by the time the 5th one came out, I was scared to read the last one because I was like, there's no way it's gonna deliver. Like, I've invested so much and I love this so much. Like, I held off for like a year because I didn't want to be disappointed. And when I finally read it, I was like, amazing. It totally nailed the ending.
Yeah, I should have said I haven't read the last book yet, so I'm glad you didn't say anything about it.
Oh, yeah. No spoilers, but I thought it delivered.
No, I almost can't see it not delivering. I feel like whatever ending he had, that he's been working towards that. He's known that, so it's not a surprise to him, I'm sure. But it's so good that it's one of those books, like, I almost don't care if I read the last one, which is probably why I've delayed reading it. Because, like, I kind of don't want it to end.
Yeah.
But I'm still super eager to read it. That was how it was with Planetary. It's like, the end's finally here.
Oh, my God, Planetary.
But then you're like, but then it's the end. You're like, finally, wait, no, but then it's going to be done when I read this. That's it.
Yep. We just did a show on Planetary that we're going to throw up in, within the month or so, and we just both gushed about it. That's another time.
Just you bring it up got my pants that much tighter. It's so good.
My butt always gets bigger. Is that what you meant? My butt always gets bigger when I talk about it.
Yeah, man, we were talking about John Cassidy. I don't think his art has ever been better than Planetary, his run on that.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like, I looked at some of his Star Wars stuff, the first couple issues, and it's amazing. It's John Cassidy, but I think there was something to the imagination and him, just the stuff that he had to push forward through to tell that story. You're just not going to get that anywhere else. Even not as a slight to him, but just, come on, what else is going to make him draw the stuff like The Authority? Planetary, sorry.
Planetary, yep. Yeah, and his Astonishing X-Men was fantastic, too. I think those two were pretty close to each other. And then I know he's doing, or he did, like, Uncanny Avengers for a little bit and did some Marvel stuff. And I just read the Star Wars, and it was solid. But, when you're just kind of doing, actor likenesses, I feel like, man, couldn't you get someone else for that and just let him do his own thing?
Yeah, because he's so good at his own unique designs and his own character acting and stuff that I hadn't thought about it. But when you said it, I think that's my uninterest in him doing Star Wars lies in that, it's just character drawing. He's just drawing the actors,
Yeah. And it's strange because on the flip side of that, I think Stuart Immonen followed his arc. And his, I really liked, actually. He's got them, they look on model, they look like the actors, but they've got a little bit more cartooniness to them, like a little bit more bounce, like Troy said with Otley's work. There's just something about it where it doesn't look quite so much like a photo representation. And, Immonen's work on Star Wars I loved.
I need to see that. I haven't seen any of those yet, and he's always been one of my favorites. And then I'm willing to guess you guys like Next Wave. Oh yeah, yep. I just got that off Amazon like a week ago. Actually, I had the issues for the longest time, and when I sold all my issues and then started rebuying trades, I've slowly kind of put the collection back together. That was one of the last ones I needed. Yeah, I think that's one of my all-time favorite books. So I know he's drawing Star Wars a little more detailed than that, but
yeah. Well, he's got quite a fluid style. Like his Secret Identity, the Superman story, looks completely unlike any of his other work. Next Wave and his Ultimate work was very kind of cartoony, but still realistic.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. He's one that I like a lot too. He's a little bit like Kari Andrews, who has got a style for every occasion. Like no defined style, just whatever suits the book.
Yeah, because when Stewart first started up, it was a lot like Adam Hughes. It was more realistic proportions and high contrast and stuff like that. And I was a big fan, and then, I don't know, he did a couple things, and I just kind of, you fall away from artists. Sometimes it's not anything against them. You just, go in different directions in comics. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see anything from him for years, and then Next Wave issue 1 was just sitting there, and I was like, I love this weird cover. It's all like cut and paste. What is this? And it said Emonin in a typed, like, Helvetica font or something instead of a signature. I'm like, Emonin, like Stuart Emonin? And I'm like, I love Warren Ellis, so what is this thing? And, man, it was like, whatever, the primer they had in the beginning of the first issue, I was sold. I was like, okay, this is already the best comic ever made.
I was going to say, it actually kind of reminds me of Umbrella Academy a bit, which is another one that both Troy and I love, and it's just got that really just insane, all-over-the-place nature. It's got kind of a simple but detailed artwork, and then that puts me on to Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba, and Day Tripper is another one, like one of my absolute favorite books of all time.
Powerful, and one of those things you're like, I just recommended the saddest book in the world to my friend.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're like,
Dave
wait,
let me
don't
borrow
read that.
Yeah. Dave let me borrow it because I never read it up until like a couple months ago, and then when I got finished, I had to like give him a hug. It was so good.
Oh, it is. I was reading it in bed, and my wife was looking at me, and she's like, "Are you crying?" And I was like, "Not yet." And then turned the final page and was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, I picked up a random issue. I didn't know what was going on, but I liked them, saw their name on it. I was at some out-of-town comic shop, so I was like, grab this. And I was like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
In the best way. I was shocked at the journey they had taken me on in one issue.
Oh, yeah. Comics aren't supposed to be this deep.
I know, come on.
Just have Spider-Man punch somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll complain about that later, but for now, just do.
Yeah. Yep.
But I highly recommend everyone that enjoys comics or has any little creative bent and enjoys comics to try making your own. Not even for publication or to try to make money or to try to make a living, but the funnest part of comics is making the comics. The least fun part of comics is doing comics professionally.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Like, I have fun with what I do. There's some days that I absolutely love, and other days it's just another frickin' job. That's all it is. And I could be doing some 9 to 5, whatever, make my money and come home and spend my time relaxing doing my own craft. So I try to recommend everyone because the process is so powerful and magical. The printing process is not powerful and magical. The selling a product is not powerful and magical. Those are just commodities and business and stuff. And the real magic of comics comes in reading and creating them. So I encourage everyone, even if you're just sitting at work and you're bored, instead of flipping through Tumblr, get your Post-it notes out and make a little cartoon in the corner of the Post-it note stack. Or make little cartoons out of Post-it notes, or, whatever. I'm just always trying to encourage people, if that's what you want to do, just do it for fun, because it's so much fun to spend that time in your head and to make these little things. And, I get so many people that they're totally discouraged about trying to make a living as a comic book artist, but they have this comics they just want to do. Like, just do the comics. Don't worry about, like, getting it published. And I know it sounds weird from someone who's my comic book privilege mountain here, where I'm like in the industry and stuff. But I see that and I hear that a lot, and a lot of people they never do the comic they wanted to make because they're like, well, no, I'm not going to be ever be good enough for it to be published. And it's like, fuck that. Do it anyways, because you'll have so much fun doing it, and that's really what it all comes down to in life is, have fun doing what you love doing and sharing it with the people you love.
Well put.
Yep.
I should probably leave on something like that before I say something.
I was going to say I don't want to wind you down, but that's a pretty good one to go out on.
Yeah, maybe I should. Thanks for letting me ramble on. That's what I do.
No, absolutely, man. Thank you for having interesting things to ramble about.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's my life. It's stupid shit that I guess eventually becomes an interesting story.
Well, awesome, man. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Where can viewers find you if they want to check out some of your work online?
I'm mostly active, sort of as a public figure, I guess, or an artist on Twitter. I'm at Ryan Winn, but my handle is TracerX.
Yeah.
Because I trace and trace
speed
fast.
racer.
Yeah, exactly. It's a total speed racer swipe. Yeah, because I wanted my thing to be Speed Inker, but I was like, no, I don't know. I was like, Racer X is way cooler than Speed Racer.
Oh, yeah.
So then I was like, oh, Tracer X, and then I'll piss off all the people that like to yell about tracing.
Yep, Steal the thunder.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Tracer X at Ryan Winn. I'm also just Ryan Winn on DeviantArt, or I haven't been as active, but I'm going to be posting more inking tutorials and more of my original art from my Valiant work and things like that.
Oh, awesome. Great. Well, that'll probably about do it for us then. We can let's get back to your whatever it is you're doing on a Thursday night in California. Probably more than we're doing here.
Tonight I'm working on a sketch cover with Commandeer Bloodshot running up on Ninjak.
Oh, sweet.
Already more interesting than what I'm going to do tonight. Well, great. Thanks so much, Ryan. We will definitely kind of be in touch.
Well, thanks so much,
guys. All right, man. We'll let you go. Yeah, we'll let you go, and thanks so much for talking with us. I look forward to continuing the conversation, hopefully in the near future.
All right. Take care, boys.
All right. Have a good one, man.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.